hope you're all well and keeping healthy out there. We are delighted to be here tonight, beaming into your hearts and homes with the first instalment of a wider series we've created with Swamp Booking. These talks are designed to create a platform for and amplify the voices of women, trans and non-binary artists who are creating extraordinary new music. This series premiere tonight will open the floor to producer, composer and artist Elizabeth Bernholz, the genius behind Gazelle Twin, and the multidisciplinary cosmic creator Natalie Sharp, who we all know fondly as Lone Taxidermist. Following Sonic Festival, we are delighted to welcome back journalist Jasmine Ketibuah-Foley to host proceedings today. During this talk, we'll hear how these boundlessly creative artists use the physicality of their bodies as a tool for musical self-expression and how they incorporate costume in their live performances. Whilst these talks are free to watch, if you are in a position to, we ask that you please donate what you can afford at supersonicfestival.com. Your donations will help to secure the future work of Supersonic, enabling us to support the artists we host and our freelance team. Plus, there's some brand new Supersonic merch available to get your paws on too. Right then, it's time to kick off. We'll get you warmed up with the sounds of these incredible artists, kicking off with Gazelle Twin's Antibody, followed by Lone Taxidermist's Cornflakes. Kick back and enjoy the show, folks.
Don't know how to feel when you want to see all the pain you cause to your family. Suffering the most, I hear what they say. Everything is clear, I can't live that way. Don't know how to feel when you want to break all the things you love, thinking it's okay. Cutting into flesh till the loop returns. Everything is black now that you confess. I begin to try, I can't shake the urge. Burying the fear, stifling the cry. It's not like they said, best time of your life. Giving all you can, love you till you're dead. I can hear a voice, it begins to shout, making me believe I would have no choice. I can feel the eyes looking over me, following my skin. Can I see was always there, swore I wouldn't know, till I breathed my last.
A girl with gappy legs overtook me. She was carrying Shakespeare. She had a nervous twitch. The nuclear ombre cloud reflected on lace curtain in window opposite. The ladies were racing their shopping trolleys. Kid in puffer running to the offie, pinching a tenner between his index and thumb. The crane looks like it's hung itself. The train does not stop here. She's eating crisps like hot potatoes. Why does no one enjoy the bum squeeze fun of the adjoining carriage's concertina? Her coat is making an angry face. I never see people whisper. Maybe it's because they're doing it quietly. That was yesterday's observations.
just let them in. But yeah, it was fun, really fun. Hope to do it, hope to do more.
Okay, and we are live. Hi, my name is Jazz, and I'm a journalist and creative in Bristol, and I'm the host of this Supersonic discussion. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's going to be a really good talk. If you do want to ask any questions, you can put your suggestions into the comments in the YouTube comments below. So if you do that, I'll try to get to as many as I can. We'll have a Q&A towards the end of the session. Now, Supersonic was founded and is led by women, and one of its key aims is to be an inspiring space where women, trans, and non-binary artists who are creating extraordinary new music are celebrated and recognised for what they do. Despite some positive trends, gender disparity is still a major concern across the wider music industry. For example, PRS for Music's membership remains heavily skewed towards men, with only 18.4% of members identifying as female. In 2019, the top 10 female songwriters in the UK generated 67% less revenue via PRS for Music compared to their top 10 male counterparts. This revealed that women, even at the top of their field, receive less opportunities than men for music to be heard and performed. So this talk comes to you in collaboration with Swamp Booking, one of Europe's leading independent agencies, to launch a series of talks that amplify the voices and experiences of women, trans, and non-binary artists who are creating new music. And in this discussion, we'll be diving deep into a conversation on performance as catharsis. Now, from the most primitive relics, we find examples of the link made by humans between music and the body. So we want to hear more about how two boundlessly creative artists are using their physicality of their bodies as a tool for musical self-expression, and how they incorporate costume in live performances. So today I'm really excited to be joined by Natalie Sharp, also known as Lone Taxidermist, and Elizabeth Bernholz, also known as Gazelle Twins. Thank you both for joining us today. Now, I want to check in with you both just to start off with, because we are in like a weird time at the moment. You know, COVID has been really hard for everybody, and mentally, especially artists, and a lot of people feel very isolated. So I just want to check in with you both and just to see how you're doing. How are you?
You go first, Elizabeth.
I was waiting for you to go first. I'm okay. I mean, I'm. You can't really tell where I am, but I'm in my home, second bedroom / studio, and I spend most of my life here anyway. So lockdown, apart from sort of taking away childcare for my son, my eldest son, it didn't really affect me in terms of sort of like losing too much contact with people, which was a positive, but probably a bit sad to some people. My life hasn't changed that much, but yeah, it didn't feel too different. I think it was pretty intense, and it was sad to lose. We thought our nursery was going to close, and that was kind of a weird thing because we'd just grown to just really depend on it and love it, and that was quite a big sort of thing to swallow. But I actually found a lot of positives in the first couple of months, just with family time and just, you know, just resetting slightly on what our priorities are, etc. And yeah, I think it's dragging on. Obviously, like this second one, it's kind of, it feels worse. It feels more intense, more frightening, because people are just maybe a bit less scared of it. I don't know, but just feels like it's here to stick around. But generally, I've been very fortunate to just like be able to carry on roughly the same as normal.
I'm all right as well. I've sort of similar to you, Elizabeth. I guess I have had a big change actually, in that I've left London and I've come up north to the Calderdale Valley region. So, and I did that just before lockdown. I didn't know that we were going to go into a plague situation. So it's been like really good because I've like just been able to slow my mind down and be more inside nature and environment in a way that I'd never would have done if I'd stayed in London. So that was really fortunate. But yeah, I've like I was just saying in the green room that I have had a bit of pain recently, which I guess we'll talk about that in this discussion. So yeah, my pain threshold's kind of up here at the moment, but I would say I'm on about a 6 at the moment, 6 out of 10. I'm saying it's really lovely to see you, Elizabeth. And
yeah, we haven't. Natalie and I, well, some people might not know, but Natalie basically has been touring with me for my last album, and she's been doing all of her own projects as well. And but we haven't actually seen each other since November last year.
Is it November? What show was that then?
That was the Nick's choir show in.
Oh yeah, of course it was. Yeah. That's that's a year ago.
Exactly a year ago. Yeah, about a year ago today, we were putting all kinds of weird things on our faces and getting ready to going on all fours and barking like dogs and all kinds of stuff. It was brilliant. Really miss it.
Well, I think before we talk about, because we're going to get right into your performances and what happens and physically what happens, and we'll get into that very, very shortly. But I think it'd be nice for, just in case people who have like sort of joined this chat and they don't really know who you both are, if you can just introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about your journey of how you became the artist that you are today. So Natalie, for you, you're really known for like your cosmic synth creations and otherworldly costume designs. But when did you realize that you were becoming the lone taxidermist that we enjoy watching today?
So my pronouns are she and her, and for those who are maybe more visually impaired, I've got a blue sort of mermaid sea background behind me, and I'm wearing a sequin jumper with some fake fur shoulders, and I've got fake lashes on, and I've curled my hair. And then apart from that, when did I realise I was lone taxidermist? I had a band in Manchester a long time ago called the Bottom Feeders, and there was 6 of us, and when we disbanded, I decided that I wanted to do something as a solo artist. And at the time I was I kind of quite like collecting taxidermy. I don't anymore, but yeah, so the name kind of stuck from then. And I mean, I've kind of been performing and making music since my mum sent me into like all of the karaoke competitions. So I've kind of always performed and kind of got like a wannabe pushy stage mother. I used to sing a lot, and like particularly Madonna and No Doubt. So I've always been a performer. I would say it's just always been there.
With karaoke in your soul.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And also Elizabeth, for you, if you could just introduce yourself and give us a bit of backstory. So for you, have you always had like sci-fi, electronica, avant-garde music in your heart, or was it something that you found along your way?
It's in my veins. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to echo Natalie and do the pronoun thing, because she's very good at thinking of this stuff. I wouldn't have thought of it, but I'm a she and her, and other things according to my partner and children sometimes. I was raised on science fiction films and a whole load of different music and kind of creepy, weird things, stories and houses. So I've always had that stuff in the background of my life, where it's just kind of infused into my into everything I do, really. But I make music as Gazelle Twin. I've been making music as Gazelle Twin since 2009. I did loads of projects before then. I was in bands. I did some solo-y, folky stuff. I studied classical music at university and wanted to write film music or music for the concert hall. I went through loads of different sort of, it's not a phase, but I went through loads of different versions of being a musician, and all of them kind of didn't really chime with me, or I didn't really find my comfort zone in them. So with Gazelle Twin, it was like sort of etch a sketch everything and start from the beginning and start making music like I did when I was sort of a teenager, before I'd really had any education in music, which was just to kind of like, I don't know, like double track stuff on a cassette tape and just use like a really crappy Casio synth to make some sort of depressing sort of Portishead rip-off songs, and that's what I used to do in my bedroom. And I kind of thought I just need to go back to that, because that's where I kind of felt at home, and sort of learn how to do that in a slightly more sophisticated way, and release my own music. So with Gazelle Twin, I just wanted it to be a fully flexible name that I could change my identity under, and not sort of feel fixed to one person or one entity, even not even sort of like a human thing. I kind of wanted to be able to sort of transform or metamorphosize into different beings, and just like be able to make the music that I was feeling, and stuff that was kind of more interesting than just, you know, being on a stage and singing a few songs and chatting in between. I just needed a bit more. I did need a bit more theatre in it. I don't know if that was a bit of a long introduction, sorry.
That's wicked. Well, like, I think going along with what you were just saying there, you definitely sort of transform and metamorphosize the whole idea of what performance is as well. And I think this leads me into my next question, because you were talking earlier about you both being on tour together and what that was like. So I was interested to know what touring has been like for both of you as women. What things have you come up against? Funny or serious, both are welcome.
Where to begin? Well, I mean, I've only toured with Natalie sort of since 2019, at the beginning of 2019.
Yeah.
And then until the end of 2019. So it was all brilliant. And I think we were quite lucky that we just had mostly really positive experiences. We had some weird ones, definitely had some weird ones, but I don't know if like being female was necessarily like an agent in that. It was kind of just odd. It's just the type of gigs that you get when you're kind of a weird artist. You just expect there to be some weirdness anyway, or some weird people in the audience, which is good. But I mean, I can't think of anything kind of particularly, apart from like the odd techie, just like, you know, doing the sort of mansplaining thing. But you know, we expect that. That's just like the bottom level of expectation, really. What do you think, Natalie? Can you remember anything?
Yeah, I mean, I can't. Like you said, I think everything that we've done together, and when it was Jez and Stuart as Kingdom Come, has overall been pretty sweet. And I don't have any like shock standout moments. However, when I've done stuff as Lone Taxidermist, either with Trifle or in fact with Body Vice as well, there's been quite a few instances in shows where, especially like with Trifle, where you know, like the engineer would always automatically go over to the two male members in the band to ask them questions about, you know, what the audio setup is, and they just point at me and say, ask her. And then they're like, oh, right, okay, yeah. And yeah, I think like sort of wider than that though is this kind of assumption about what you do inside of music. Like the assumption is always that I am a singer and that I use my voice and that I make costumes. and it's never really like, you know, it's always sort of like, oh, so you're a singer. I'm like, well, that's one of the things that I do, yeah, but there are so many other things as well. And you know, there's been like a few instances where like engineers have kind of used like really negative language on stage with us to describe. Like I remember there was like one engineer that was talking about an adapter and saying it was a gender bender, and it was just like, you know, things like that where you're like, no, I need to call you out on that, because that's, you know, that like you can't use that language, you know. But yeah, I think like when it's come to like me and Elizabeth performing, especially in Europe, it's I just felt like we were really well looked after most of the time. Yeah.
Well, you said, Elizabeth, that you had pretty weird moments together on stage with audience members. So what would you say was like the weirdest thing that happened whilst you were both on tour?
God, there's probably two. I don't want to like name and shame any promoters, because obviously it's not the promoters' faults. But I get there were two shows that stand out for me. There was one we did in Turkey, and there was no particular incident. It was just that it was the quietest, weirdest show we've ever had. Because for people who don't know, you know, the live show that I do is Gazelle Twin, and did with the last album that I made, which was called Pastoral. It's quite energetic and loud and intense, and you sort of need a certain amount of audience energy to sort of keep you going. Well, not keep you going, but just like to feel like you're doing something, and that, you know, you're not just sort of performing in front of a mirror or something. And in this particular show, it was just lots of very young Turkish people, well, not lots, very few young Turkish people in a very large seated sort of theatre space, just kind of sat on their phones. And Natalie and I were just, I mean, there's not really a point where we talk to the audience or we talk to each other on stage. So we just, you know, we start the show and 40 minutes or 35 minutes later we've finished, and that's it. There's no kind of acknowledgement. This is, you know, we just have to do it and then talk about it later. But I could feel Natalie's just like energy, just like, what the fuck? And I was just like, what the fuck? It was just weird, because they'd put all this money into this massive festival, and it just seemed like no one gave a shit. But I mean, that's you know, that happens sometimes, and you know, there's lots of reasons for that, possibly, you know, not just a reflection on like the artist, but there are probably a load of reasons why that happened, ones that I'm yet to understand. And then another more kind of physical experience was we did sort of a really late show at a festival in the UK, and an amazing festival, which I've forgotten the name of. Is it Sea Change?
Yeah.
Which I think maybe not be a festival any longer, unfortunately. But it was just one of those really late night shows. They'd put us in this abandoned gymnasium, which for a start was an incredible venue. But a lot of the audience were quite off their heads, and at one point during the show, I came off the stage into the crowd. It was really intense. It was a really amazing energy. And then I suddenly just felt these massive arms grab me from behind and squeeze me and not let me go. And I'm not a sort of strong, muscular woman. I'm quite little and skinny. And it was kind of scary, but also, well, it wasn't nice, but it was kind of, I don't know what the word is, invigorating. But at one point I just thought, are you going to let go of me? And what am I going to do if you don't? And it was just one of those kind of horrible, like, weird moments where you just, the last thing you expect. And luckily there were loads of people that would have stepped in if it had have gotten a bit ugly. But I think that's the only one that sticks out for me, really. Yeah, luckily I have had previous things, lots of weird things in previous shows, but yeah, I don't know, it's just when people get off their heads, isn't it? And they kind of don't know the boundary.
How about for you, Natalie? Has anyone ever grabbed you whilst you're in the audience?
Well, I used to cover them in like a big plastic sheet, and then roll on top of the sheet. So they were trying to grab me, but there was like a big film. But one time it did get pierced actually, but luckily a very good friend was underneath it, and he sort of caught me and sort of pushed me back up again. Yeah, weird experiences. I think with Trifle, every show was weird, but I think like I was sort of trying to out weird them or something, I guess. Like I remember there was one guy in Leeds who he got like a camera, he got his phone and he had it like right up in my face. So then I just like put it into my bra and said like, you know, you're not having it back, sort of thing. So I just sort of like, yeah, I kind of enjoyed bossing people around, especially guys, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like every show was weird, really. Every Trifle show that we did was weird, and the Body Vice stuff that came later, in a way, was kind of less weird because it was more sort of internalized, I guess. But yeah, I can't think of like specific memories. I'm sure there's loads that I'll think of, you know, when after this chat's finished.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of them.
Yeah, the male thing, I was just going to echo what Natalie said. It's, I think, because we're both quite confrontational performers, and we thrive on that. Well, I thrive on that. I'm sure you do too, Natalie. I don't want to speak for you, but there's a certain type of response you sometimes get from men who maybe don't know your stuff as well, and they've come to see you, but they're kind of just a little bit taken aback, and sometimes they can kind of get weirdly aggressive with it and confrontational back. But that's like brilliant if that happens sometimes. Oh, I've just remembered a brilliant one actually. This is the best one. Sorry. I did a show. This wasn't with you, Natalie. This was with my husband Jez when we were touring another album called Unflesh, and we did a show in Switzerland. We'd done this venue a few times in this very quaint little village, and sort of on the German border, the German border of Switzerland, and it was like a really privileged audience, like quite young people who just obviously there weren't many places to go in this village, so they'd just go to any gig that was coming their way, if they liked it or not. And we did this really intense show, and sort of halfway through the set, this couple had brought like a whole picnic with them, and at the front of the stage, decided to just like set up on the front of the stage where I was stood performing. And like they got these like crackers, and they had like their drinks, and they decided to sit on the stage but like facing away from me, in front of me, whilst eating their snacks, and all their crackers like spilt out onto the stage. And I remember just like carrying on like with really, I was performing Antibody, the video that some of you might have just seen, which is a really intense song and really personal. And I just remember thinking, this is the weirdest situation. I just did not know what to do, but I think I just performed even harder, and I just went for it even more, because I was just like, I've got to channel this kind of bewilderment and rage into something. So I just kind of let rip and just hoped that the noise would just like blast them out of the way. But yeah, that was the weirdest one. Crackers and picnics, you know, on stage. That was hard to beat.
When in those instances where people have like been in your space on stage, I was quite interested to sort of probe you a bit more from what you said a second ago. So you were talking about how, you know, when people see your performances, for some reason, maybe a lot of male people or people with male energy, they feel very confrontational towards you. And I think you were sort of going towards talking about how that spurs you on a bit more. And I'm interested to know, like, you know, is that something, do you see that a lot in a lot of your performances, and or do you look for it even, and just for like some fire to like make you sort of burn more on stage?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know like what Natalie's reasons are, but I think before I got sidetracked with the cracker story, yeah, I was thinking of a few situations where I'd felt really small and meek and apologetic and just kind of really, you know, on stage when I went before Gazelle Twin. And I remember just thinking, I don't want to feel like that all the time. I don't want to be, you know, I want more of a power on stage. And, you know, I just found ways to do that. And when it worked, I felt really, really powerful. And when I kind of performed in front of, you know, and a lot of our audiences probably are largely male, I would say. And I know a lot of mine are largely male. Just kind of being really up close to sort of a group of men, which might otherwise feel a little bit oppressive and a little bit like intense for women on their own. I loved it, and actually I saw them back away and not make eye contact. And I remember when I had that first experience, I was just like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted. This is exactly not to scare them, not to sort of like overpower them, but just to feel powerful for, you know, for once in my life, and just to have a, you know, have that power over people. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that says about me. You could probably go into all kinds of psychological digging, but I just loved that feeling. And I think it maybe just comes down to slightly being slightly scary and scaring people, and having, you know, some sort of, you know, energy that where you're in control, and, you know, you're not kind of, you know, diminishing yourself in the company of other people.
Natalie, have you felt that sense on stage where you felt like powerful, or some kind of like strange like power dynamic that's given you a fire in your belly on the stage?
Yeah, totally. Like Elizabeth says, it's dead transformative, but like it properly is. And there's a lot of, you can get like a lot of energy from that. And I quite enjoy scaring people. Or like just sort of like sensing that they just don't know what you're going to do next, and sort of surprising them all the time, and like kind of keeping them on their toes, and like yeah. But like it's funny because it's like, because I've got this chronic pain thing, when you're performing, like the adrenaline is so overriding and so powerful that you don't, like, I don't really feel the pain until the second, you know, seconds after coming off stage, and then my body is just a husk again. So it's almost like you kind of like, you sat on this kryptonite when you're on the stage, and you're just like holding on to it, and you've just got all of this energy and this power. Oh, this sounds really wanky, but it's true. It's like you can't, it's a really hard thing to even like try and sort of express, because it's just like you've got to try it for yourself, I suppose. And I think like I get called sort of weird or intimidating. I get called a lot, but only by men. And I sort of see that as like, I guess like what Elizabeth, you were saying about that, like that confrontational energy that you get is, to me, it's just sort of like, because people don't know what you're going to do or what's going to happen next, they become confrontational as a kind of a defense. Like they can't sort of open up and let you in, because they don't quite know how to receive you or how to take you, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
Absolutely. Well, I think you've opened a conversation up there really well to talk about chronic pain, because I really wanted to speak to you about what role that has to play when you're on stage, because obviously you've been very open, Natalie, about your disability and how pain has become part of you on the stage. But I wanted to know if it's become part of like almost like your performance. I think you were talking about it a bit there, like how it kind of is, but if it does have a role to play, what is that role, and how do you harness that in that space, because that's a very vulnerable space to be in?
Yeah, I think like when I was touring Trifle, I got to the point where my body couldn't do it anymore, and I would like be literally spasming on the stage, and I was like really brokenhearted, because I just thought, well, I perform anymore, really. And then it kind of, after being inside the MRI scanner again, I just kind of realised that there's something in it. There's something in the sounds of this massive 2 Tesla strong magnet that's like making me really buzz. And so like I kind of looked to the machine, or like the investigation of the machine investigating me for like my next sort of power. And it just became really apparent that I had to do a show about my experience with chronic pain, because doing trifle was not, it wasn't me anymore. It wasn't like part of what I was going through or my identity. So I had to do something about pain instead. And then it was just kind of like a 2-year-long process of like realizing what the hell form that was going to take, and you know, making a bit like a full sensory tactile show about chronic pain that involved, you know, the use of spines on stage and scanning machines and, you know, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's sort of been, I guess that's like the last performance that I did was of Body Vice. I don't know if I'll do any more of that actually, but yeah, it's been like, it's sort of, yeah, it's meant that I've been able to like move on after doing this like really saccharine, intense pop album to something that is the total opposite. And actually, like Elizabeth, when you asked me to do that track for the AGM compilation, Red Kiss, or was it? Did I call it Red Kiss? Or I can't remember what I called it now.
Yeah,
but
Red Kiss.
Red Kiss, yeah. That was kind of like the turning point, because I was like, oh, maybe, yeah. Yeah. It was like a new way of like doing sound, like that was more kind of like Foley inspired and more kind of like internal, I suppose. And so that was kind of a bit of a changing point as well in the sound I was making.
Yeah, well, I think for both of you in your performances, there's definitely a very heavy kind of physical and sensory element in there. And I'm very interested to know whether that physicality for you is something that you plan, or does it come into play quite organically when you're creating your music and songs? For you, Elizabeth, is that something that do you plan it, or does it just happen after you've made the music?
I think it probably initiates the music itself. It's that energy that's in you that has to come out in various forms. I think I think I'd say sort of best example of what I do is my album Unflesh, because I think that was an album that I made without really meaning to, about sort of going through puberty and going through sort of various sort of trauma at you know, the sort of teenage, and I wasn't really prepared for how that came out. It came out really, really intensely in the sort of style of the music initially, but then when I got to performing it, just the way that I moved and the things that I was feeling, that you know, the music had kind of opened up, just came out, and I didn't plan it. It was just something that I felt and was overtaken by, and I think that's what I always sort of aim for now, is just like that. That was like the benchmark for me of just like how to write and perform music that I really, you know, that I'm really in. I'm really sort of feeling it. I really mean it. It's not an artifice. It's not just, you know, weird and, you know, intense just for the sake of it. It's, you know, it's from me. It's from my bones and from my experience. And I think if you're able to tune into yourself that much, then what you create is kind of a bit of a surprise to you as well. But it's totally you, and it's totally natural, without sounding like a cliche. But I think, you know, Natalie's talking about looking in into her sort of personal experience of pain, and sort of taking it apart, and kind of, instead of just trying to kind of, you know, sidestep and just escape that, is kind of like immersing yourself in it completely and exploring what that world is and how it looks and feels and sounds. And you know, those things, just you can't really plan that kind of thing. It just has to happen how it needs to happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. And for you, Natalie, does that physicality on the other end of the spectrum of your performance, is that something does that come to you just naturally, like Elizabeth, or is it something that you plan?
No, you can't plan any of it really. Even if you try, I just think like, I think I really annoy stage managers and promoters because I don't ever send them like a plan until 2 days before, and even then it'll probably change because every show just has to be different, not just in vain, but because it's like constantly getting re-churned and kind of vomited out and becoming this other thing as I'm sort of discovering and fine-tuning and like working out more what this experience of chronic pain is, or how do I communicate it, because there's no real language for, I don't think there's a real language for chronic pain. So like, you know, from the first incarnation of Body Vice where we were painted as the Blue Man group, to like how it sort of changed at the last show that we did, where it was me and Tida who was on the flute, and I was like unraveling her nervous system and passing it through the audience. It's always been just constantly changing, but it's not something that like you can do just sat at home with an Excel spreadsheet. It's like something that has to happen during every live show, because you realise when you're in the shower or in bed, you're like, oh no, this is what I'm meant to say, this is what I'm meant to do, and you get kind of a new idea or a new seed based on like the last performance that you did. So yeah, it's not really about planning, I don't think. Just plan to make accidents, I think, is the only plan.
Wonderful accidents.
Yeah.
Well, there's watching both of you perform, there's definitely a lot of like light and shade and hilarity and very heavy moments in your performances. And Elizabeth, you mentioned something about trauma a second ago, so I'm interested to know, you know, what role has trauma had to play in both of your expression as artists? And you know, is that something that you've held back in your writing process, or is it something that comes out physically on stage? How does it come out for both of you?
Well, I touched on it briefly. I think it came as a surprise, as I said, to sort of suddenly write an album about a period of my life that I'd actually completely buried. And it wasn't until I was sort of like 31, 32 that I just I started writing this music that I thought was going to be about actually about the body. I think at the time I was nowhere near the level that Natalie has experienced, but I think I was going to hospital quite a lot for tests.
Gastroenteritis.
No, like, well, yeah, stuff relating to my guts and stuff. I think I was going to have loads of tests, but I can't remember the name of the specialist. Yeah, something gastro. Anyway, gastroenterologist, is that it? Yeah. So I was kind of getting just really into the whole being inside my body, and I'd have lots of fever dreams, and I was really interested in like the science around, you know, the body and the kind of mutations of the body. I started just getting really, really into that kind of grotesque stuff, and then I realised when I was writing my album that I was writing about my own body and about how, as a teenager, I had what I later didn't realise at the time, was a condition that people call body dysmorphic disorder, where you kind of have this vision of your own body that's, you know, this freakish kind of thing that, you know, obviously nobody else necessarily sees. But unfortunately for me, I didn't have a great time at school, and a lot of my physical traits that I that caused this condition I was bullied about as well. Not that there was anything particularly like crazy weird about me, but I was just, I was just unlucky. So yeah, I kind of experienced quite a lot of trauma through school, and it was kind of psychological trauma more than physical trauma. But just as the person that I am, which is quite an intense, hypervigilant person, very sensitive, very anxious, it just kind of had to come out eventually. And I think it reached a point when I was about 14 where I kind of wanted to end my life, and sort of made an attempt but didn't. And that was kind of the turning point for me, sort of in terms of who I became after that, and who I've become as a musician, funnily enough, and how I now use music and use my experience to sort of kind of fuel my work. And it's not to say that I'm constantly writing about this one experience and that it's always about trauma, but it was a way of sort of going so deeply within myself, or kind of confronting myself, in order to sort of find the energy to produce something that came from from my soul and from my heart, and just kind of communicate that. It just sort of happened. So I didn't kind of plan it out, but it just sort of happened, and it happened in a way that allowed me to sort of feel as though I could return to that time as a teenager and kind of take control of it. It's almost like a sort of philosophy that I kind of tapped into, that was just like confronting my demons and confronting my fears, and just sort of wanting to do that sort of comic strip or like graphic novel type thing where you kind of become this kind of superhero version of yourself, and you kind of unleash hell, because it's kind of what I always dreamed of doing as a teenager. So it was just like kind of taking everyone down and getting my revenge, but never having that kind of legitimate means to do so. So I just decided to do it through music. And then since then I've done various other albums that aren't quite the same vein, but it's just about the intensity of that experience and finding a voice for it and finding an expression. And I've been quite lucky in that making something so deeply personal, I've had the response I've had has been really amazing from people who've gone through other traumas, or who just sort of tap into that feeling, that sense of kinship of, yes, I've been there too, I've felt that too. So yeah, that was a long answer, but yeah.
Definitely feels like you are like a superhero on stage, like yeah, you are fighting those demons, you really are. I mean, for you Natalie, are you in the same space in terms of trauma? Like, does it have the same relation to you in terms of music, or is it not a case of fighting demons, but maybe, I don't know, it's more abstract for you? How does trauma fit into your music writing and your performance?
Well, I've been reading a lot on the body and chronic pain, and there's this thing called TMS, which stands for tension mitosis syndrome, and it talks about how in the oldest part, like the amygdala part of your brain, you hold on to unconscious trauma from your past, and the way that manifests itself is down your spinal column into your nervous system and into pain. And so I've had traumas happen in the past where I went mad, and I think like there's an argument for that being part of my experience of like what the physical experience of my body being in pain. So yeah, that's I think I've been, I don't know, I think it's a bit of a more of a kind of a abstract term, trauma, sort of quite a sort of, I don't know, it's a bit of a negative word as well, trauma. So like I tend not to think of it or use it really, but certainly being in like physical trauma. But then again, it's like reconditioning your mind to understand pain differently or accept pain differently, or to play with pain, have a relationship with pain that's, you know, not a way of like accepting it, I suppose. And then of course that, you know, that comes out in the music. It always does, like whether you're conscious of it or not, it just does. I think we both have. I think it's not like you sort of leave your body over there and then you go off and you write your music over here. Like it's all like one combined thing. Like your body is the art. It's sort of like it comes out like that. So that experience of trauma in me is going to come out in the performance and in the music.
Yeah, it's like you're your own material, isn't it? It's like your own tool that you have to use to get this stuff out. In you know, like, you know, you're the kind of artist that, you know, you're not just making music, and you're not just the singer. You're creating, you know, an entire world with the visual aspects of it, and, you know, the sort of relationship between you and the audience, and the costumes and you, and the costumes and the audience, and there's just loads of things firing off. Wow, there's smoke. Perfect timing. It's like you're, you know, and all that comes from you. You're just like this kind of conductor of all of this energy that, you know, you've got the ability to actually articulate in, you know, in the real world, using the materials and stuff around you. It's kind of it's an amazing thing when it happens and you feel like it's flowing. And I'm talking about you, Natalie. I'm not talking about myself. I'm saying it's just, you know, when you see the synergy of all these things come together. And I haven't been lucky enough to see Natalie's Body Vice show, but I've seen some of the videos and pictures, and the music is incredible. It's more than music. It's like a soundtrack, really. It's more of like a soundscape. It's more of, it's totally a world of its own. It's nothing like I've ever heard before. And it's helped me understand your kind of, you know, your experience, because, you know, we've talked about your pain a lot on tour, and I've never really, you know, it's impossible for someone else to understand how that really affects you. And, you know, I'd never have, you know, people talk about pain as this thing that's going to stop, or they know they can medicate and it's going to come and go and that's it. But yours is, you know, just hearing you talk about that, how it's just this constant thing that, you know, you have to change your you have to address the psychology of it, and, you know, so much more than just, you know, a diagnosis, isn't it? It's something that's in you that you live with, and there's ways that you have to make sense of that, or not make sense, but just there's ways that you just have to allow it into your life rather than stifle it, you know. And I'd go as far as to say is that's kind of, you know, that's what I think everybody needs to do, that with something in their life. And, you know, I think us as privileged artists that we are, we're able to in some ways do that, and it keeps us out of trouble. Keeps us off the streets. It keeps us kind of, like on top of it, I guess, because if you didn't have that, you'd be totally overwhelmed by it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but babe, also, can I just like fangirl you for a minute? Like, having listened, like before I knew you or met you or anything, having listened to Unflesh and then getting to perform with you in Pastoral, it's like, I think I know we were talking about the planning earlier, but it's like, I saw the way that you managed to like crystallize and like zen and create this world for your super body being to like exist inside. And so like I took a lot of my cues from the process and the way that you were the way that you were doing things, because like before I did Trifle and Body Vice, like I was kind of all over the place doing all kinds of random things that weren't tangible or like sticking together properly. But when I witnessed you performing, I was like, oh yeah, that's it. You've got to like try and sort of like focus in on this like very intensely personal private world that you want to live inside. And so like with trifle, it was like, it started off as just, well, let's just take all the colors of the trifle and all the textures of a trifle and like squirt that out on people, and like just sort of focusing in a way that I hadn't really done before I'd seen any of your performances. So like, you know, I took a lot of inspiration from you when it comes to that. Yeah.
But I think you would have done it anyway. I think you were already doing that, and thank you though for saying that. But I think you would have done it yourself anyway without me. But I mean, everyone has that. You got to always have that moment, haven't you? I had that moment too, and I watched Fever Ray in Brighton, and I've had loads of comparisons to to them, and some that I just sort of, it's a bit kind of annoying, but at the same time, it's like totally like I saw that show and just saw these creatures come out of the dark and this weird voice, this kind of bizarre, detached, disembodied voice, and just thought, I've never seen anything like this, and this is incredible. And I just don't know why I hadn't seen anything like that, but it just felt like the costumes, like this hidden performer. I think in one of the shows she was in this, it's almost like it was an African costume, but it was kind of almost covering her entire body like a tent, and she was just this huge blob on stage, but you could hear this voice coming out and you could see these hands poking out, and you knew that it was live, but it was just, that was my eureka moment of just thinking, God, you don't have to be seen even to perform, as in fact, brilliant if you don't have to be seen at all. And that was like my ideal thing. It's like I just want to disappear completely, or just like totally transform into something else and not even deal with being worrying about being a woman on stage and worrying about what I'm going to wear every night and stuff like that. Is like this amazing revelation. So all of mine came from that, really. Like, well, not all of it, but quite a lot of it. The idea to just disguise and step back and step away from myself and all the problems and bullshit that you get with being a woman in music. It just was like, you don't actually have to deal with any of that. You can just do a totally different thing, go a completely different way.
Well, Elizabeth, you mentioned that you haven't seen the Body Vice performance, so there will be a chance to check it out after this. So anyone who's watching, if you stay with us after this talk, you can watch the SS18 performance and also the Body Vice performance as well. But we've got time to go to the audience for a couple questions. So I'm going to hand pick some. Okay, so this is for both of you. Do either of you think that the weirdness of your shows encourages weirdness in the audience, and does that feed back into your performance?
Are you okay for me to go? Do you want to?
Yeah.
I guess we covered it a bit earlier. I think yes, definitely, and it's like the ideal thing that you want really is people to be with you completely, and just go with you and help you, well, not help you, but just connect with you. I guess it's like the ultimate thing. And I think costume and weirdness and stuff that isn't kind of just everyday run-of-the-mill boring, it can really bring stuff out in people that allows them to just let go. I think any shows that I've been to as a punter where I've really seen, I've really felt like I've kind of been plunged into a totally different universe, and seen the performers really letting go and just kind of almost getting into a trance. It really catches with a group of people, and that's an ancient thing. I think that's something that every human needs to feel once in a while, because it's something really primal that we need And for some reason, just costumes, masks, whatever, they just seem to trigger it more. They just seem to make it more intense. Maybe because we can just lose ourselves more. That's my theory anyway.
What was the question again?
It was, do either of you think that the weirdness of your shows encourages weirdness in the audience, and does that feed back into your performance?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like I try and like employ people before the performance happens. We used to like source performers in every city that or wherever we were playing to come and be part of the performance and dress up in these with like rubber masks on and wear inflatable costumes with vibrators on your fingers, and because you sort of like you want everyone to be involved, and you want to encourage of course you want to encourage weirdness in what you do. Yeah, is the short answer.
We have another question. They've said, you seem highly attuned to each other's performance. With collaboration in the live or touring experience being so central to the development of your work, how will industry shutdown affect your work?
Oh, interesting question, that one. You can't really
fine. It's all going to bounce right back. It's fine.
You can't shut down artists. You just can't, because we're really good at adapting and retraining as working in cyber security. We're really good at, like, I think that as an artist, as a self-employed person that makes art, you always are kind of sort of on the brink. You're always on the breadline, and so you're always kind of, I feel like, on the brink of disaster. Where how am I going to pay the rent next month and whatever? So you do find ways to do stuff, but I think I'm still like working out at the moment. Like, I've been asked to do, I don't know about you, Elizabeth, I've been asked to do quite a few live streams, which I've like just said no to, like absolutely not going to happen, because the art is like all about the sensory experience and about having the three-dimensional people in the room with you. And so like I've been trying to work out how to do more audio visual or expanded cinema, as a friend put it the other day, experimental moving image work. So kind of making more work for myself, really. Like the thing that I'm working on at the moment, which ended up was going to be a live performance. I'm like, well, I'm not going to do a live stream, so I'll make like a mini TV series instead. So that's been my way of like trying to communicate the art that we're making at the moment. But I miss performing so fucking much, and I don't miss like any of the traveling or any of that kind of stuff, but the actual performing, like, that's been like a really hard thing to deal with. What do you think, Elizabeth?
Yeah, well, I mean, I made, in some ways I'm kind of postponing how I feel about it, really, or just delaying things slightly. But I sort of stopped touring in November because I knew I was going to have another baby this year, which I did have. So I knew I wouldn't be touring for a good year, maybe 2 years anyway. But yeah, I think I do miss it. I like Natalie, I miss that connection with people. Like I was just saying, if you have that experience where everybody's, sort of tuned into the same channel and everybody's kind of feeding off each other, it's so like invigorating and just keeps you feeling relevant and feeling like what you're doing, it's like not just some indulgent wanky stuff. It's something that's really powerful and that you need and that other people need, and you feel like fulfilling something. So I miss that side of it, definitely. I despair really about what it's going to look like to tour next year or the year after, whenever it can all kick back in. Without this pandemic, Brexit has just fucked all over every musician in the UK, basically. Any engineer, anyone who needs to work in the EU. It's trying to sort of think of the positives. There aren't really any. I think it's just going to end up separating out people who've got the money to pay all the extra tariffs and fees and whatever, and the people who can't. And Natalie and I, we're on the people who can't sort of side of the list, really. And it's just going to kill off so much opportunity, which is just devastating. But I think, I don't know, I've had a few people message and say, oh, you've got to adapt, and, life's tough, etc. But it's like, well, none of this needed to happen. The COVID's one thing that's shit and devastating, but, Brexit is just completely needless and psychotic. So, yeah, I don't know. There's the opportunity to do live stuff, streaming stuff. I think it's going to have to that technology is just going to have to start diversifying and becoming more interesting and opening up, to the great demand that it's probably going to have over the coming years. And I am quite interested in that. I did a project recently that was kind of using the Zoom platform and sort of taking that into a kind of more of a audio visual weird space. And I don't know, I think, whilst it's never going to replace real shows and real audiences and stuff, there's got to be, there are other ways that we experience music and other things that we make music for. But yeah, it's really hard to say at the moment, because we're all still a bit in shock, I think, aren't we? Like we're just sort of hoping that things might just sort of gradually get back to normal, but at the same time we know it's never going to be quite the same. So yeah,
weird time.
Huh?
It's a pretty weird time at the moment for everyone. No one quite knows what's ahead of us.
But one thing for sure is, and that's been said constantly since the beginning, is that we always need this stuff. People need outlets, they need to create stuff, and they need to consume creative things, and there'll just have to be a shift in the way that we do that. And hopefully it will mean that there's a rebalancing of of the industry, where people are paid fairly and there's more equality and more inclusivity. Well, we can hope for that anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's a very strange time, but we've got ourselves, and we've got people around us, and for people that don't have others around them, I think we're all learning lots about how to survive at the moment. It's very weird, but yeah, difficult. But this has been amazing, and I'm pretty sure that's all we've got time for now. So I know.
I was going to give you like 2 more light shows. Hold on.
Go on, get them out quick.
Get them out in like one massive little. Yeah.
I feel like I'm on like.
Who's got the smoke alarm off?
I want to thank both of you for joining us on this panel. It's been an absolutely amazing chat, and just to hear about how both of your journeys have brought you to this point, and to delve deep into what your performances are like for you emotionally and for other people as well. It's been great, and thank you everyone for joining us as well on this supersonic panel discussion on YouTube. You can join us on Friday the 11th of December again, where I'll be speaking to More Mother and Valentina Magaletti about the art of collaboration. And if you do want to watch Lone Taxidermist Body Vice performance, which is amazing, and also the equally amazing Gazelle Twins SS18 performance, just stay with us here on YouTube. It's coming up next. But from us, we're going to have to say goodbye for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
believe, folks. That was totally brilliant, insightful and inspiring. We hope you enjoyed that as much as we did and had plenty to take away. Here's a huge thank you and a cyberspace applause to tonight's participants, Elizabeth, Natalie and Jazz, for the perfect start to this new series. We couldn't ask for anything more. So if you've enjoyed what you've seen tonight, please feel free to donate. It would help greatly with our production costs and will help to secure the future work of Supersonic. Head to www.supersonicfestival.com. And so to polish off the night now, we're delighted to premiere live footage from Natalie's Body Vice performance at Supersonic 2019. And following shortly after, we'll have some more live footage from Elizabeth from her 2018 Supersonic set as Gazelle Twin. So grab your hobby horse, good people, we're off.
Scan is about to begin. Just remain completely still. Okay. Okay.
Okay, the next scan will be starting now. We're just going to pop you a little further in. Okay. Okay.
So that's all, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. We hope you'll join us next time for our second talk of the series, entitled The Art of Collaboration, on Friday the 11th of December. We'll be passing the mics to multidisciplinary artist More Mother and percussion powerhouse Valentina Magaletti. So we'll hear then how collaboration plays an important role in their musical output. But for now, head to supersonicfestival.com to make a donation if you can, and treat yourself to some merch. But for now, we're going to say good night, take care, and we'll see you again very soon.